Hi, this is Gary Dranow from Park City, Utah, and the Gary Dranow Show, proudly broadcasting to you from Radio Evolve Rocks in Santa Barbara, California. Listen more and evolve. Hey, welcome to the Gary Dranow Show, coming to you from Park City, Utah. Our guest today is the infamous, the famous, the undeniable Jeff Lawrence. He is the first musician I met in Park City, and he single-handedly has put my band together for me, so I owe him a lot. Hey, Jeff, welcome to be here.
Thanks for having me over, Gary. Good to see you again.
Yeah, hey, Jeff, I want to jump in with where you were born.
I was born in Greenwood, South Carolina. It's about an hour between Greenville and Columbia. Those are the two big cities there. So kind of middle of nowhere, actually.
South Carolina.
Yep, South Carolina.
Okay, I had Atlanta, so.
Well, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, but we'll get to that later. When were you born?
1968. I was born the day after Martin Luther King was shot, the very day after.
Seriously?
Yeah. And it was kind of rough for my mom, I think. My dad was in Vietnam at the time.
Really?
Yeah. But must have been kind of rough on them.
So your dad was in Vietnam in 68.
Yep.
I was there in 71.
Yep. And I think he came back around then.
What service was he in?
Air Force.
Ah.
Yeah. So
was he a pilot or?
Aircraft mechanic.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So he was still in combat to a degree.
Yeah, staff sergeant.
Do you know where was he in Shulai or Da Nang, or do you know where he was?
I don't know. I know he went to the Philippines first, and then
Yep.
I don't know where they exactly were in Vietnam, but what they would do is go get when they would shoot down a plane or something like that. They would go over and either fix it or get the stuff out of it that they could salvage. And
Yeah, I heard that.
Kind of what his job was.
Okay, fantastic. Is your dad still alive?
Yep.
Well, tell him I say hi.
I will.
Thank him for his service.
I'll probably talk to him tomorrow on Father's Day.
So how long were you growing up in South Carolina?
I wasn't there very long. I was only there about 3 years. But my mother and father are both from there, so my whole family's still there pretty much.
How big is your family?
But they had five brothers, sisters, so did my mom. So a lot of them aren't here anymore, but they're in their late 70s now, both my parents. So, but they're all mostly still in that area.
Okay.
Not too many people ventured out west like me.
Well, we're going to get to that in a bit. So tell me about your childhood and when you were first exposed to music.
I actually do remember this. We moved to after my dad got out of the military. He was still wanting to build planes and stuff, so we moved to Georgia because Lockheed was down there. So he would work on airplanes there at Lockheed. So we ended up in Georgia, outside of Atlanta, called Marietta, about 30 miles.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's big now. But I still remember my very first exposure to music because my parents had a bunch of albums. They didn't listen to a lot of music. They weren't musicians. And but I remember going through them, and and this was kind of funny, but I saw Herb Albert in the Tijuana Brass, and it had like I don't know if you remember the covers, but they had like kind of half nude women on the front.
Yeah.
So of course I'm a little kid. I'm like, what's this? And then I put it on. It's this instrumental horn music, and I loved it for some reason.
Really?
And what's funny, I'm actually going to see them Thursday. He's still touring. He's 90 years old. I'm going to see him Thursday at the Capitol
The
Theater.
record company, A&M,
Yep.
is Alpert.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm seeing him Thursday in Salt Lake City.
Where?
At the Capitol Theater in Salt Lake City. Yeah.
Is that same as Eccles or?
No, it's a little or smaller theater downtown. I don't know exactly what street, but
and he's still performing.
90 years old.
90. So he's got Buddy Guy beat by a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that was the first exposure I remember to music. But my parents were completely opposite in music. My dad listened to He listened to Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, all country stuff. Mom was kind of a hippie, and she'd listen to the other kind, the other stuff, Birds and Mamas and Papas, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I heard a lot of. But that got me loving instrumental music. And I still record instrumental music mostly.
Don't I know it? You're
'Cause-
actually going to be playing some of your music during the show, so all you folks will be excited to hear Jeff's instrumental stylings. So instrumental music, what was your first instrument and at what age?
I got a guitar about 9 years old. I didn't really play it much. I didn't really know how to do anything on it.
What kind of guitar was it? Acoustic or electric?
Some piece of junk acoustic from Sears or something. I think I plucked out a few things on the top east, the low E string or something, but I wasn't really a natural at it, really. I wasn't really a natural musician. I heard a lot of melodies when I was a kid. That's why I knew I could be a musician. I had a lot of music going on in my head that was original music, but I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't a very coordinated guy. I didn't just
You couldn't audiate what you were hearing in your head and put it to your fingers to the instrument.
No.
Well, I can relate to that because I'm the exact same way.
Took me a lot of practice.
Yeah, well, boy, have you come a long way. So you started playing at 9, kind of, and your earliest influences was Herb Alpert, which I think is really funny. Did you listen to any of the music that your mother listened to?
I mean, she just because I had to, just because she'd play it really loud during breakfast and stuff like that. But I didn't.
You didn't like it,
nah, because some of it was like Anne Murray and Helen Reddy, and I wasn't into that stuff much. Tom T. Hall, Mac Davis, all those 70s.
Were you watching the Ed Sullivan Show at all?
No, that was already passed pretty much by the time I grew up. I mean, I grew up in the South, so it was all like hee haw, like listening to what do you call it, and Grand Ole Opry.
Grand Ole Opry, yeah,
and that kind of stuff. That's what I was exposed to.
Loretta Young,
a lot of Christian like quartets, Baptist quartets. It's like the Statler Brothers and things.
Did you go to church a lot?
Yeah, not a lot, but they would, we'd go on Sunday a good bit. But it wasn't. I didn't get influenced in that music till much later. So I actually started playing in churches a while back, or after that, a long, 10, 20 years after. But I don't do that anymore. I'm not really a religious person. I don't think. I wouldn't say I was now.
We'll leave that one live.
Yeah.
Because we are in the great state of Utah. When did you really start developing like in high school? Were you playing guitar by then?
I was playing in middle school. I'll kind of tell you what made me want to start playing. I always find that there's two, and you could probably relate to this. I always find there's two answers to this question. And usually people a little bit older than me will say when they saw Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. That might have been you. And then guys my age, it's usually Kiss. Like and it wasn't even the music. I saw Ace Frehley of Kiss like playing a solo and his guitar started smoking. And I thought it was the coolest thing. He still does it. He has some kind of trick where he makes his guitar smoke while he's playing. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, but I didn't even care about the music. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
That's what kind of started me.
You missed Jimi Hendrix lighting his guitar on fire, but you saw Ace Frehley.
Yeah, because I think
smoke out of his guitar.
Yeah, because I think Hendrix died when I was like 2 years old, and so I wasn't real.
Like 70, so.
Yeah, I wasn't real familiar with it. My parents didn't listen to it. You got to understand too, is in the South, it was pretty racially divided back then, and it wasn't even. I don't even think I could have listened to Jimi Hendrix when I was a kid, to be honest with you. And it was pretty sad to say that, but
wow,
the way it was.
Yeah, well, I was just listening to the story about Albert King, who I don't know if you know this, but before he was Albert King Nelson, drummer for Howling Wolf, and drumming for Summerlin.
Oh, I didn't know any of that. No.
Yeah. So, but
I love
when
Albert
he
King.
was coming up with blues, it, it wasn't legal,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
to be a blues player.
Yeah.
So, it was difficult times.
Yeah, I had some of those stories like you would see on the old Elvis movies where we would sneak over to they would call it the black side of town. That's not what I call it now. That's what they called it then. And I would just walk up, look in the bars, the windows, we'd get stack up milk crates and look in the windows to watch them play. But they would run us all. They'd come around back and throw rocks at us.
Wow, man.
Tell us to get back on our side of town. Yeah.
Honking.
Yeah. They would say that to us, throw rocks at us. They mainly didn't want us to see only they wanted us to see the women. The women were pretty provocative when they danced back then in those clubs. But yeah, when I first really started playing, my parents got divorced when I was about 11 years old. And this is kind of what got me going. My mother started dating the guitarist for BJ Thomas, the guy with the song, Raindrops keeps up. And he also played for David Allan Coe too, a country guy.
Yeah, he the best.
Yeah. Well,
you could call him Merle.
Yeah.
You could call me.
But and so he would go on the road all the time. He was living with us on and on, but he'd go on the road 9 months out of the year, and he would take all his guitars, but he would leave his bass. And that's what I started on. I started on the bass. That was the only thing we had. He'd leave the Fender Jazz bass. He eventually gave it to me. His name was Wayne Saul. They called him Bear. He was like a big old guy with a big beard, and he was a really good blues player. He had a band called Eric Quincy Tate, local. There was a trio that was really pretty popular in the Atlanta area. But yeah, he would leave that bass there. I started taking bass lessons and pretty much played the bass up until I was 18 years old. I didn't really switch back over to the guitar.
So, what was the first band you played in?
Oh, we were called Grand Reaper. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even plan on being in a band, but there was like 2 bass players in my town, me and another guy, and I wasn't good. The other guy was pretty good. And so when people found that out, none of the bands could find bass players. When people found out I had one, they just started coming over my house and saying, "You're going to play in our band." These guys made me play in their band. I didn't even know how to play the bass. The guy just kind of showed me. He kind of showed me how to write it. Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I knew I was taking lessons, but I just started. I knew where some of the notes were. I didn't even know what the bass was when I heard it on and out. I couldn't even pick it out of a song, or except for like another one, Vice the Dust or something like that. But I started learning like that song, My Sharona, those kind of bass line songs early on.
80s?
Yeah, it was 80, probably 80, right at 80, 1980, 81, somewhere where I really started.
So new wave was.
Yeah, and I wasn't real.
Was that back in Atlanta?
Yeah, it was starting. It was still a little bit of, it was kind of the end of Led Zeppelin, kind of the end of disco, And
what about New York Dolls and
I didn't discover them till later on. I guess Kiss and Humble Pie and all that was what I got into, that kind of music. But I was into the Southern music. I was into Leonard Skinner and stuff like that back then.
Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Jeff Lawrence, with Jeff Lawrence Group, right?
JLaw and Warhorse.
JLaw and Warhorse, that's right. with Jeff Lawrence, and he was just talking about, was it Leonard Skinner?
Yeah, I was kind of getting into the Southern rock thing there. You didn't have it was all around us, so I didn't have any choice. Um, all those guys lived around me, you know.
Well, you did you meet any of them?
Later on in life, when I started playing bars, some of them would pop in. Believe it or not, there was a time where Leonard Skinner wasn't popular anymore. Nobody would even come see him. And then Billy Powell, the keyboard player, was like he ran a construction crew down the street from my house. He was like a ran a framing crew, framing up houses. Nobody really cared about him for probably 5 or 6 years.
Seriously.
Yeah, and then they got another, the brother, what's his name, Johnny Van Zant singing, and he kind of took off again. But I'm not so much into that stuff now, but I was down. I didn't know any. I was into Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, that
You're
kind.
still in a Led Zeppelin. I've seen you with your
Yeah.
electric drill
I
and
don't really listen to a lot of
your,
that kind
your
of.
violin bow.
Yeah, but I don't. I really don't listen to a lot of that stuff anymore. I just play it because that's what they hire me to do at the clubs.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the whole Park
Yeah.
City music scene in a bit here, but so when did you flip from bass to guitar?
Around 18, I started noticing the bands I would play with that I started having to show the guitar players how to play the solos. So, but what had started me on that is my bass teacher was actually a guitar teacher, and his name was he's in Widespread Panic now. His name is Jimmy Herring. He's a pretty popular guitarist. He wasn't at the time. He was just a poor guy teaching guitar lessons. But at one point, he just said, "I can't show you anything else on the bass. I'm not even a bass player." He said, you're just gonna have to switch it up." And so we traded my bass in for an SG. And then
Your first guitar was an SG.
Yeah, I traded my Fender Jazz.
Well, the picture behind you is you playing, I think, an SG.
It might be a Guild. I play Guild Polaras now. They're kind of like shaped like SGs. Is it yellow?
It is Guild. Yes, yellow.
Yeah. They're shaped like SGs. That's what I play now. But yeah, I started having to show the guitar players how to play the solos. So I just said, and plus I was already at this point I was writing all the songs for every band I was in. And so I just said, I'm just gonna switch. This is making no sense anymore.
And that was 18.
Yeah, around 18. Yep.
So, and you were just out of college? I mean,
No,
just out of high school?
yep. And then I started going to GIT, the Guitar Institute of Technology. They had moved it from they had opened another location out of LA in Atlanta. And then I started going to there and taking that's when I really started learning my theory. I didn't know much theory before that point.
Did you know of my partner in crime from the 90s, Keith Wyatt?
Yeah. Yeah, he was part. Yeah, he kind of helped start that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd met him.
He's the head of Blues GIT.
Yeah.
So.
And him and Steve Friedman was the guy that ran it in Atlanta, but they were real good friends. And I think they sent Steve out there. It became a big mess because something happened and they had to separate and pull. Now it's like the Atlanta Institute of Music, but for a couple 3-4 years it was GIT Atlanta. But I went there, studied theory and stuff, learned what I was doing because I before this there's a reason why I did that is before I never had a great ear, a great musical ear at all. Never. I could play a crap load of guitar licks, really good licks and stuff, but I had no idea what key I was playing in. And then one day I went and recorded with a band and I did all my flashy licks and the songs and I listened back and I was like, that's terrible. All of it's out of key. So I said, I got to go figure out what I'm doing here. So I went to GIT and learned how to.
What year did you first go to GIT?
It was probably 86 or 87, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And did you graduate with a degree?
Yeah, but it's only like a 9-month program. And then you step up to another 9 months. I did those two. You can kind of keep going with it, but I only did the two. And then I went back to the town I was born in and went to college and for classical guitar. And I did that for 2 years. Studied strictly classical guitar.
Which you still do today.
I still do, but I mean, I don't get a lot of shows doing that. So I'd like to get back into it more.
When I was very young, I saw Andres Segovia.
Oh, really?
and Montoya,
Oh, yeah.
and in LA at the Dorothy Chandler uh, Pavilion or theater. And I had no idea what I was seeing, what I was hearing, but I knew it was magic.
You know, it was great.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Segovia, especially, it's like all the photons in the room gathered around him.
Yeah.
And like the light came down. And he said that sitting down and holding a guitar next to your body, next to your heart, is the way to play a guitar.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes sense.
so one of my last interviews with Skunk Baxter,
Yep. I saw that one.
and he was the founder of Dealey Stand, Dealey Steely Dan,
Yeah.
and he, whenever as much as he can, plays sitting down, which is unusual for a rock and roller or
Yeah. Yeah.
someone out of the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah. They all kind of played low, like Jimmy Page for a while there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do, really.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't do it. I play pretty high up for a rock
Yeah,
player.
I'm here.
Yeah. That's kind of what I do.
Let's see here. So, tell me, let's get more about into your musical journey while you lived in Atlanta. I mean, you got the Southern Rock thing. You snuck in to see some of the black clubs.
Yep.
When when did you leave Atlanta?
I didn't leave Atlanta until 90, no, till 2000. I came out here in 2001, I think.
Oh, you came straight to Park City?
No, I came to Salt Lake, but it was only about 2 years before I ended up in Park City. And I didn't do that. I actually came out here. This is after going through tons and tons of bands, all kinds of stuff.
Well, let's go back
Back a
and
little.
talk about your tons and tons of bands.
Okay. Um, I think the first band I had anything real impact was a band we called Fatal Vision, is what it was called. We were kind of like Skid Row, but Black Crowes, somewhere in that area. But we kind of were in the wrong time. It was kind of when hair metal was dying, grunge was coming in, and we didn't really fit anywhere. We had a couple of record guys visit us, and the one was going to sign us. This story. This guy flew out to LA. He was going to sign us. He had actually saw us play in Nashville, and we travel up there and play some. And came down to sign us, and our singer didn't show up for the meeting, and we never saw him again. The next thing you know, he's out in LA somewhere, lost their whole record deal, the whole thing.
Oh man,
Never figured out why or what happened.
never heard from him.
No, never saw him again.
Just ghosts to y'all.
I ended up talking to his parents. He went to LA. He never told it. I don't think he ever knew we were going to get the record deal.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was crazy. So around in that time, I started listening to the little bit of the grunge. I really didn't like it. Well, yeah, I realized it was a good songwriting, but I didn't really. I noticed there was no guitar solos.
Like
It wasn't for me.
or
What's that?
Kurt Cobain, or who are you talking?
All yeah, and Soundgarden, all those bands like Pearl Jam, and it did. There was no guitars.
Soundgarden and Full Jam
Yeah.
grunge.
That's what it was lumped into at the time. I don't think I would consider it that now, but that's what they were all kind of the same. You know, the Seattle thing. They were all from Seattle. Um, but I didn't. There was no guitar solos. I was like, so this ain't for me. So I switched into playing country that was when Garth Brooks and people started coming along. So I was noticing, okay, well, there's guitar and this stuff. So I switched over to playing country music for almost 10 years.
Did you ever learn how to chicken pick?
Yeah, did all that. And it worked pretty good because rock they were starting to incorporate rock music into the country at that point a little bit. You could kind of see it going in. You know, even Garth Brooks would play like Hard Luck Woman by Kiss and some of the Billy Joel stuff.
Uh-huh.
So so I kind of went that direction.
Didn't he do a whole thing where he had an assumed name for
Oh yeah. It was like Chris Gaines or something.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it was supposed to be a movie, and they never made it the movie, so he just got stuck with his album where he's some other guy. I don't think it worked out for him. But yeah, I did that for 10 years, just all over the bars everywhere. And then this is a unique experience I had. I During all this, I got hooked up with Sherry Holly, who was Buddy Holly's niece. And she was doing Buddy Holly's music. I guess Buddy Holly's kid did wasn't a musician, but she was his niece. So she was going around doing all of Buddy Holly's music. So I toured with her in Texas, just doing Buddy Holly music for 2 or 3 years too. We just circled Texas. And that was pretty
So
interesting.
you get down to Austin and
Yeah, Austin, Everett. They were from Lubbock, just like Buddy Holly was.
uh-huh.
So we played there a lot, Lukenbach, El Paso, Dallas, Beaumont, all in places. Texas, you can circle Texas and play forever. It's a big place.
Yeah.
And we did that a lot. That's probably the most. And then while I was doing that, she was on a Gold Wax Records, which is a big blues label out of Memphis. And this, I kind of got messed over in this deal. They picked me up and signed me to Gold Wax Records to do a country album because they knew I was doing country too.
And you were singing by then, huh?
Yep. But here's what ruined me as far as singing goes is because I'd put a demo tape out, and then Gold Wax Records was having a lot of problems. They were bouncing checks to us. They would always make them good, but they were still bouncing almost every time, and then they would send the money, and it was just a mess. And they weren't doing much for me. I recorded one demo for them, a whole full length album, but it wasn't mixed. It was just scratch vocals. Everything was mixed on it except the vocals was scratch. And I told them I wanted out of my contract. And so they said, okay, but you got to put this album out first. So I signed something. And then they just put the album out with my scratch vocals on them, and they were out of key. It was terrible. Yeah, I had no, I wasn't even trying to sing it in key on scratch vocals. I was just singing just so the band knew where to do, what to do. And it ruined me in Nashville. I moved to Nashville for a couple years, and it ruined me up there because people would hear that and they were like, this guy's a horrible singer.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to Atlanta. And that was shortly before I came out here.
When were you in Nashville? What time?
Around 96, something like that. It was nothing like it was now. And as soon as I got up there, I got a job writing songs. Because I'd always written songs and stuff. I got a job writing songs the first week I was up there. But this was the catch to it. They were going to pay me $100 a week to show up.
96?
Yeah, it might have been 95. It was close in there. And you had to show up from 10 o'clock in AM to 2 p.m. to this round table with about 6 other writers. And so that puts you in the middle of the day where you can't have a job really.
Right, yeah.
And they're paying me $100 a week. I can't live.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I was washing cars in the day and trying to make the writers' nights. I just couldn't. I ended up going back to Atlanta. I ended up meeting I forgot what his Eddie Arnold. Not Eddie Arnold. Can't think of the guy's name now. He's kind of a popular singer in the 60s. I'm losing track of who it was. But I was telling him the story and he goes, well, how much were you making in Georgia at the playing in bars? I was like, 500-600 bucks a week. He was like, go pack your stuff and go back to Georgia tomorrow. That's what I did. So ended up going back there.
So tell me about the Atlanta bar scene.
The Atlanta bar scene was pretty good, but you had to go on like a Tuesday. Yeah, you usually had to audition. You'd have to go on like a Tuesday afternoon when no one was in the bar but the manager, and you'd set up your whole thing, play like 3, 4 songs, and they decide if they would hire you or not. So it was kind of based on talent, which I liked. It made the scene better. But it was pretty good.
Were the bars packed?
All of them were packed all the time. But at the time, rap was becoming a real big thing. It already was a big thing, but rap was huge in Atlanta. So that was kind of taken over. So I started doing sessions for rap artists at the time.
Rap was huge in Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta, that was the biggest place for it.
Wow.
Because L.A. Reid and Babyface had a label there, and all the rappers and soul musicians and stuff were coming down there. So I started getting more session work than I was getting bar work at that time, because a lot of the rappers would want me to come on and do like Eddie Van Halen kind of solos on their stuff.
Seriously.
A lot of it never got heard. A lot of these guys never, they just disappeared, faded off into the distance. That's kind of what I was doing then.
So you were doing tapping in the 90s?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that I didn't find that. I started getting into that with like Steve, listening to Steve Vai and stuff. There was a point in the late '80s where, to back up a little, to where Steve, Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, all those guys came out, and I was,
G3.
what's that?
G3.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was before G3 was created. That's what it is now, but that was when they were coming out separately. And so yeah, at the time, everybody's was thinking, well, we got to start doing this. This is a new thing. So we got to learn how to do this. And some guys said, well, we can't do that. So they just didn't try. But I learned a little bit of how to do it through listening to that stuff. And I still like that kind of stuff.
Okay. Let's so after have you covered all the bands that you've been in?
I mean, there were so many. Some were fell by the wayside. Nothing was really taken off big.
Did you ever go on a tour where you opened for anybody?
Yeah, not really on tour a lot. Other than the Sherry Holly thing,
In
but
Texas.
yeah, but in Georgia we would open for a lot of big bands just locally. Like bands would come through and we would already be you had a lot of house band situations in Atlanta where you would be the only band there, and I was in a lot of those kind of deals. So whenever someone would come through, like REO Speedwagon, Cheap Trick, those kind of bands, you would already be the opening act because you were the house band anyway.
All right.
And I never sang in any of these bands. I was generally just a guitar player most of the time. And then before I came here, my last band, I started singing a lot more. And my last band, I didn't play guitar at all. I was kind of in this they called it doom metal or stoner metal. It was kind of like Black Sabbath sounding kind of stuff. And I just sang. It was
death metal.
Yeah, it wasn't that fast. It was more of a droney kind of thing, like the old Sabbath.
So tuning the E string down to C or something.
Yeah, or like D mainly down. But I only sang in that band. It was called Shovelhead, and we had a record deal, but we put out one album, and that was it. And it just kind of flopped. Everybody kind of bunch of addictions going on in the band, not me, but other guys in the band, and it just imploded. And that's kind of where I left off and started thinking about coming out here.
So, what was your burr under your saddle that made you think Salt Lake City, of all places to go?
So what I did, I was married to my first wife at the time, and we had just gotten a divorce, and it was a bad situation. Like I was miserable. Pretty much lost all my friends because we had the same friends, and I didn't want to be around her, but they were still hanging around her, and I was pretty much just by myself. And I just gave up music. I said, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done with music. And I knew one guy in Salt Lake City that I grew up with in Georgia. He had a construction company. He's still out here in Salt Lake. I said, I'm just gonna move out and work for him. I don't know. I don't want to be here anymore. I never fit in the South anyway. I don't feel like I did because I was never like a redneck kind of guy. I never liked to hunt or fish or all the stuff they do down there. I never agreed with any of the politics and any of that. Yeah, I never felt like I fit in.
Okay, well, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back with Jeff Lawrence and his very interesting history and stories. we're back with Jeff Lawrence, and he was talking. What were we talking about? Remind me, because
And we were
I'm a lot older than you, Jeff.
not a lot. So I just came to Utah and gave up music, came to Utah and started just working a job. And that's all I did for a couple of years. I didn't play much. I'd already recorded 3 albums back in
So when did you move to Utah?
2001, right?
Okay.
Right when it barely just hit 2001. Um, yeah, so I didn't play much. I'd released 2 albums in Georgia. You know, there's nothing major. Classical album and the country album I was telling you about.
Was 9/11 in 2001?
Yeah, I was here right before that, but I was here when it happened. Yeah. Yeah, I'd moved here probably 3 months before that, something like that.
Wow.
But anyway, so I buy a house here, not really playing much music. I'm still writing. I have a couple of guitars and not really doing anything. I didn't know anybody. And we were working one day and I drove by some in the town called Holiday in Salt Lake.
Uh-huh.
And we went by this place called something I can't get on track music. And it said bass teacher needed on a sign. So I just called them. So I can do that. I'll make a little extra money. So I got a job teaching bass there. Pretty soon I'm teaching guitar there. Next thing you know, I quit my job at a I don't know if you want to pause. I can't. You didn't hit record. Oh, you can't see me.
This.
There you go. Right there.
Sorry about that, folks.
Still, let me see if I can. I don't know.
It actually follows your movements.
Oh, okay.
And it must have followed.
All I can see is the keyboard. They're a little bit up. All right. That's probably. There you go.
We'll edit that out. All right, we're back in business. So you were working the hard work, and then you became a guitar teacher,
Yeah.
a bass teacher, then a guitar teacher.
Yeah, then they stuck me.
When did you write your guitar instruction book?
It was after this. I'd worked at On Track Music for about a year. They're still over there. Then I said, well, I started thinking to myself, I can do this myself. I don't need to work for this guy. He wasn't paying me good and treated me like crap. I hated my job. I was in a size room of a closet with no windows, 8, 9, 10 hours a day teaching 20 kids a day. I was miserable.
Factory.
But what I'd noticed is I'm getting even better because I'm playing the guitar 10 hours every single day. Especially when they wouldn't show up. I'd sit there, So I'm getting a lot better. And about a year goes by, I said, well, I'm going to open my own place. I rented a place in Taylorsville, opened a place for about a year, and just ran my own guitar teaching place for about a year. And then this is how Park City got involved right here, as I got a job at they had heard about me at the conservatory up here, Park City Conservatory of Music and Arts.
That was right in Kipple Junction, right?
Yep. Right, kind of where we're at now.
Right near Local Lizard on the second floor.
Yep.
Yep.
And so that they offered me a job paying me as much as I was making on running my own thing and just stressing out all the time. I was like, I can sell my company to them. They bought my company and ran one down there for a while. And it took all the stress off of me as I taught with them for about a year, helped them build a couple of things. Then I started putting together kind of a band then. From there, but I basically just called it the Jeff Lawrence Group. Had no idea what we were doing at the time. Jam bands were kind of in.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Matthews, I guess if you consider that a jam band, Widespread Panic, all them kind of things were really taking off. Fish. I didn't really particularly like that kind of music. I've never been a Grateful Dead guy.
I was just gonna say, isn't Grateful Dead the beginning of jam band?
Yeah, but I never was. I tried to like them because I've got a lot of friends that like them, but I never could.
I
can't do it.
I couldn't listen to it, so
I tried, but I can't. I still can't.
Yeah, I can't.
But I had all these musicians at the conservatory that I had horn players, everybody around me. So I said, I'm just gonna hire these guys. I put together like an 8-piece band and started booking myself. We didn't even have any songs. I would just come in and just play a riff and just we'd trade solos. And when I started getting booked all over the place, we'd play a few songs, like old Otis Redding songs and whatever.
Like
just
sitting on the dock of the bay.
no, more like because we probably did that one too. We did like Mr. Pitiful and stuff nobody had ever heard, and Hard to Handle, like Black Rosary did. Um, but we just trade solos. I'd even take songs like Voodoo Child that me and you play a lot, and just have take a horn solo here and just kind of make my own arrangement. Everybody seemed to like it. I was getting booked everywhere, and I
Well,
got
when you say getting booked everywhere,
well, just
what year was this, and what were the clubs?
probably 2005, maybe.
And I'm going to jump to right now.
That's right.
It's hard to get people to come out right now.
Oh, it is, yeah.
But back in 2005, was it an active environment?
It was easier in Park City because there's more places. A lot of the places that were here then aren't here now. There used to be a lot more bars on Main Street, and Park City's easier than the rest of the state in a lot of ways because you have tourists, so you're not expected to bring all your friends to the gig all the time and sell the place out because you got ski tourists in all the time. So that's basically what we were playing for. It was a ski tourist. So it's pretty good, but back then it's now a lot of those bars don't exist. DJs started taking over, jam band things kind of over. So then I started just putting together regular sets, regular.
The drummer that you found me, my drummer Bob Smith, I think still plays in a jam band.
He probably does. He's been around more than anyone else. He's been on the scene way before I ever arrived.
Yeah,
he could tell you some stories, but he's not
a very talkative guy.
Fella. But he's a great drummer.
He sure is.
But yeah, so then it started becoming really hard for me to afford to live in Park City. I'd gotten married again. My wife got pregnant. So we moved back to Salt Lake, not for long, but got down there and I started teaching at the School of Rock. And then that's where I found my current drummer. We've been together since then. Fan about 20 years. And I got a bass player out of there too. And then I never practiced with our bands never practiced. All I did was give them a set list. I thought about this in my head before I did it. I was like, these guys already know every cover song in the world because they're teaching at the school. They're already teaching these kids these songs. They already know them all. Mm-hmm. So I just made a set list. Say, here you go. This is what we're going to do. They showed up. We played. It was good. Just kind of been doing that ever since. Playing everywhere I can play at.
Well, let me see what I have on my magic list that I haven't asked you. So I asked you what brought you to Park City. We're talking a little bit about the Park City music scene. Let's talk about the Park City and Salt Lake City music scene now.
Yeah, now,
actually,
go ahead.
It's time for a magic break, I think.
Okay.
So give us 2 minutes. We'll be right back. We'll talk about Park City and Salt Lake City now. We're back with Jeff Lawrence, who has really lived a musical life. Um, you were just saying that you don't have a lot of your masters for your. How many albums have you put out?
I've put out 25 albums, I think, and then quite a few singles. I don't do albums anymore. I only do singles now. So I'll probably put out about 7 singles too. But here's the difference between what I do with music and what most people do with music. I separate my two. I separate my music. Whatever I do live is nothing like I do in the studio. My studio stuff's all instrumental music mostly. I got a few vocal things, mostly instrumental. And so I don't, of course, I can't play instrumental music for 3 hours in the bars. So I just play cover tunes in the bars, I consider it a second job. And then for my art, I release what I want to play, my instrumental music. So it's completely separate.
When you say you released 20 albums, over what period of time, and how many songs usually do you have on an album?
I would say 1995 up until now. I'm releasing singles. My last full length album, I don't really remember. It was 5 or 6 years ago. I tend to only release 1 or 2 singles a year now.
Did you record these in studios?
Yeah. Some in Georgia, some here. I use Counterpoint Studios down in Salt Lake a
Oh,
lot.
that's a big studio.
Yeah. That's where my drummer band used to work there. It's kind of where I got stuck, hooked up with that. Now I record in Ogden. A guy in my CCR tribute band, we haven't talked about much, but he owns a studio in Ogden. I record out now. So
The only band I ever got fired from, your CCR tribute band.
It's been a tough road. We're on our 5th guitarist on that one.
Yeah, well, I wasn't prepared, so I deserve to be fired. But anyways, um, uh, so how much is the CCR cover band doing?
We only do like one show a month.
Okay.
And then my other band plays pretty much every weekend. Somewhere.
Are you playing more in Park City, more in Salt Lake, even?
Both. We play at the Spur in Park City and the White House. So shucks, that's about the only places in Park City we play now. Salt Lake, the music scene, which
you don't play the Cabin anymore?
No, they changed ownership and it's a mess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could go into that, but I basically moved my show to the Spur across the street.
True.
Yeah, it's a mess. But yeah, we were talking about the scene. We were going to talk about that, and then we play Salt Lake, but only a couple places. Play in Ogden, a couple places. The Salt Lake music scene is a total mess, and I've gotten a lot of pushback for saying that, but it's the truth. Very cliquey. If you move here and you didn't grow up here, they don't let you in the scene, really. And
seriously,
yeah, I mean, I don't consider that I've ever been in the scene, and I've been playing here for 20 years or more, and I'm still not in the scene. I'm in spite of the scene. I still play every weekend, but it's a mess. Yeah, you got to be. Most of the bar owners hire their friends or whoever can get the most friends in to drink beer. They don't care about the talent itself. Not to say there's not talented people in Utah, there is, but a lot of people that get hired shouldn't probably. And the only other way to get in the scene is they have these jams on Monday nights and open jam.
like things. What's that? The Frog? No.
Yeah, they got one of the Hog Wallow. They got one of the Green Pig, which my buddy Ray runs. Pig,
that's what I was thinking of.
And I'm kind of against jams, because I think there's a bar scam to get people in to get free music.
Yep.
But
and plus you got to sit around all night for your turn. So
yeah, but you can, if you go to all of those and then go to a lot of people's shows, you can kind of get yourself into the scene that way. But I can't do it. I'm not going to go from Ogden down to Salt Lake on a Monday night to play 2 songs when I'm already playing every weekend anyway. And
how many gigs do you play a year?
I usually just play Friday, Saturday nights.
So Friday, Saturday, all year long.
I try to make it all year long, and it's been that way for 4 or 5 years straight now.
So let's see here. That's 52 times 2. That's 110 gigs a year.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah. I guess so. But yeah, I got a lot of pushback talking about the scene though. Like they banned me from Utah Musicians Radio, and they which doesn't matter. But what I've noticed, and this what I've noticed about the scene, the people that the really respected musicians like you, Terrence Hansen, a couple of other ones aren't really considered in the scene, and they're still the most talented people that are still playing everywhere. And then the people that are always complaining about the scene are the people that are probably not going to be around in 2 or 3 years. And that's just how it is. I mean, I just don't worry about it a whole lot anymore. Um, I don't consider myself even in the scene, even though I'm still booked every weekend because I don't have anything to do with it. I don't really, still don't really know a lot of the musicians.
Do you play regularly in Ogden?
I play yep, I play Brewski's in Ogden, which is kind of by my house, and it's my best paying gig. It works out really good. Always people there,
Yeah.
and that's the
Well,
big.
what makes Brewski's attract people?
It's on 25th Street, which is kind of like Main Street on Park City, or kind of Bourbon Street vibe, kind of Bill Street if you're in Memphis, kind of
Okay.
that vibe. So there's kind of always people, on there at the street anyway. And that's the kind of places I look to play. I can't stand when the bar wants you to bring in their people.
Yeah.
They're in the alcohol business. They're not in the music business. You shouldn't have to bring their alcohol customers to
Right.
it. And that's what nobody in the scene ever seems to understand. And I won't play a place unless they already have a clientele. I'll play at a bar named Sue a lot.
Uh-huh.
There's always people there. The Spur, there's always people there. Um,
What's the name of the manager at the Spur?
I don't even know who it is.
Young guy.
I only talked to. I know they flipped a few of the bookers. I hadn't played there in a long time until about last year. I was just playing at the cabin. I don't usually like to play too many places that are close together.
Yeah. Yeah, I was playing cabin in the
Yeah,
Spur, and it kind of had a
yeah,
weird
because they're
thing.
right across the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
But another problem with the scene in Salt Lake, and it may be a little bit Park City, and I didn't notice this in anywhere else I've ever lived, is that you don't know what you're gonna get. Like you can go into a bar one night in Salt Lake and there'll be a punk rock band. The next night there'll be a country band. Next night you don't know what the hell's ever going on in these places, so nobody knows what to do. And some of them are so dirty that you don't even want to use the bathroom. I mean,
Oh, God.
it's like you're not going to take a date there, you know.
Well, it reminds me of the place I used to play down in Salt Lake on State Street. Oh, what the heck was it? The Tavern?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where it don't even have a stage.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
played there too.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
terrible.
that was roughing it.
Yeah, but if you and to prove my point, the two bars that have always been in Salt Lake and they're still there, there's Club 90 and the Westerner. Two places I don't play at, but they've been up there forever because everyone knows exactly what they're gonna hear when they go there.
Uh-huh.
Club 90 is basically people our age or maybe 40 older, and they know you're gonna hear top 40 tunes. You go to the Westerner, it's a country band. You just never in. You don't have to think about it. But yeah, those two places have been here ever since I moved here, and before.
All right. We're getting close to our hour, I think.
Yep.
What are your plans, man?
I'm just gonna drop on stage one day.
You're gonna play till you die,
I guess
like
so.
me?
I don't know what else to do. What else am I
Yeah,
gonna do?
yeah. I had my first episode podcast with a guy named Jim Bass Knight out of Seattle,
Yeah, yeah.
and he said to me literally, "I'm gonna die playing, so I won't know that I stopped playing." So
I imagine that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep playing until they stop booking me.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm one of the oldest guys in the scene, so you never know. Could be any time now. But I'm gonna still release, one or two, three songs a year or something like that.
All right. What is your favorite guitar and why?
Favorite guitar, I've been I go back and forth with it, but for the last 6 or 7 months, I fell in love with the Guild Polaris, the ones that looks like the SG on the picture there. Um, I don't know. I wasn't expecting to. I used to play Guilds in the '80s, so one day I looked them up and I'm just gonna buy one, see if I like it. And I fell in love with it. Now I got three of them.
Silly. Okay.
So that's all. That's all I've been playing.
Humbuckers?
Yeah, they're humbucker. They sound, and I don't know much about, I'm not like a guitar
Okay.
nerd, guys. I don't know gear person. I don't know much about it. But one guy walked up to me the other day in a bar when I was playing. He goes, "What kind of pickups are those?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he came back 20 minutes later. He'd already done all the research. He goes, "Oh, this is this and this," and it makes it sound like a Strat and a Les Paul.
Oh, it's a split. It's a split
Yeah, I
coil.
guess so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I said, "Okay, yeah, well, that must be why I like it." Because I've
I,
always went back and forth from get Les Paul to Strat to Telecaster to. But if I was in a country band or something, I'd probably switch back up to
I have
Telecaster.
discovered the Telecaster recently.
Yeah,
So,
I've always played a hybrid Telly that my brother put together for me.
well, a humbucker and
Yeah, it's got a
a single
humbucker.
coil at the bridge.
Yeah, but I do have a straight up Fender Telly. If I was in a country band, I'd play Telecasters.
Well, I can't think of anything else to ask you. You've been a fabulous guest, Jeff. I appreciate you coming up, and I would like to have you back again and to tell us some more war stories.
Yeah.
Jeff, JLaw and Warhorse.
Can I say something before I go?
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you. I know me and you've had in and outs. I love you.
I love you too, brother. All right. Everybody out. The Gary Dranow Show.